Hi class, today we're going to cover chapter 5, repetition structures. Alright, so when you are learning the writing programming languages, the very important thing is the programs, a lot of time they do make decision making, and also a lot of like you create something with the menu, and a lot of same process will needs to be done many times. So instead of you rewriting the code over and over again, we introduce something called loop, and they have different type of a loop to help you out to shorten your code to make it more efficient. All right. So on the coding wise, this class we're gonna repetition structure calls the statement or set of the statement to execute it repeatedly, so which you don't need to rewrite the code over and over again, and make your code look more professional and efficient as well. And the loop we are using, the load states, it will be three main loop we are using. One we call while loop, one is called do while loop, and they have the other loop called do until. That one we don't use that more frequently anymore, because that's actually the same as do while, but they are just going the other way. Okay, because all those loop you need to set up one conditions. That condition will determine this loop will continue or not. When the condition is true, and the loop will continue. When the decision is false, the program will get out of loop and continue with the whatever after. And do while and do until is a pair. Do while it does if the condition is true, but the do until the condition turn to the false. So it's one way or the other. So we're gonna focus on while and do while. If you see do until somewhere, just make sure that's the other way, opposite condition from the do whiles. Okay. And when you're creating any of the loop, be careful. You need to make sure the condition somehow at some point it's turning to a false. If its condition is always true, that means that it's gonna be an infinite loop. All right. So for the while loop, it's pretty easy. You see the statement starting with while, the condition that, for example, x equal to 5, and while x greater than 1, you're gonna continue with this while loop. So inside this while loop, what you need to do, make sure the x decrease every time you go through the loop. So eventually the x will be equal to 0 or less than 0. Okay, so this is the while loop. And when you're doing the flowchart, you're gonna see the condition, it comes with the diamond shape. So when it comes in to check the condition, like if statements, right? If the condition is that when it's true, it goes one way. When it's false, it just continue. But the if statement difference is if it's true, you go to a statement, and once it finish, it will go continue with whatever after. The loop, it actually kick you back to precondition and go through the condition again. You see that? That's a main difference. For the loop, it goes back. If it's if statement, it goes down. All right. So, and the condition control loop, it work with modules as well. So inside your conditions, you can have different function codes to it. Okay, and also the loop, like for example, you're doing the shopping cart. A lot of time at the end, you gotta ask it, do you want to continue shopping? You will put a yes, and then it goes back. That's the part we use the loop. So you don't need to rewrite a menu again, rewrite a choice, rewrite reading from users. And also inside those loop, you can have if statement if you need to. You can have different function code if you need to, just like a regular coding. You just have a loop outside for them to repeatedly. Do while loop is a little bit different. Okay, the while loop you see was while condition, right? Do while is do it once first, and then you check the condition. So the while loop we call the precondition, pre-test loop, and the do while loop we call it post-test. So the difference, while loop, you check condition. If it's false, you don't even get into the loop at all. Do while, doesn't matter, you will get into loop at least once. and you check condition. If it's false, you will skip the loop, continue to what's after. If it's true, you're gonna kick back to do it again. Okay, that's called post test. So you can see the difference here on the flow chart. It gets into all the work, and when they check the condition, it kick back. All right, if it's true. So that's after post test loop. And do until here, like I mentioned earlier. In the previous do while, you can see if it is equal to true, it goes back and do it again. But do while is totally different. If it's false, it goes back. Until the condition is true, they continue. Do until it turns into a truth and continue. So you just logically opposite sides, but it's the same type of the controlling loops. Okay. And the other one loop we use quite a lot as well. It's called counter controller loop. Count control loop. That means if that's a loop, you know how many times you need to go through already. You don't do while. Of course, you can code in while and do while as well. You control the counters. Or that's the other one we call for loop. It's a count control loop. That one it sets up counter for you every time they increase by 1, so you can control how many times you need this loop to execute it. So the statement with a for, and you need to have a variable set up as a counter, okay? And that variable will be starting from the value from 0, from 1, doesn't matter, and then they increase by 1 each time until to the maximum value. So you control how many times this loop will go through. And this loop, they come with the initialize the variable first and test it out the loop, and then go back, they increase the loop by 1. Increase the counter by 1 and check if it's still under the maximum value, they will continue looping. For those for loop can increase more than 1, it just depends on how you control it, but it just depends on whatever the task makes sense to you. And you can increase by 1 or you can increase by more than 1. It's on your coding part, but that's for loop. We call count controller loop. And generally, the concern of the loop for the count loop is, first of all, you need to make sure you set up variables, all right, to be a counter. You need to initialize it to 0, to 1, or whatever initialized value you want. And then you need to make sure you modify the variable, which increase or decrease, could be either way. But make sure it changes. If the loop variable keep the same number, it never reach to the limits, it's gonna be an infinite loop. All right. So all the loop is interchangeable. I can do while loop, and for loop. They do all the same thing. Just depends what's more logically correct for you to do it. Okay. So like for example, you are doing a running total of 1 to 100. What will be the more logical for you? Probably a for loop will do it for me, because you know we have a counter. It started from 1 or 0 and all the way count to 100, and then every time you just need to sum up the total, the current counter into a sums. You can add up, and then you don't need to create another variable to keep increasing. Thanks to your for loop, the variable for the counter is increased already. Make sense? So it just depends. All right. And the Sentinel value is a special value that makes the end of the list of value, or to stop. Remember back to old time, if you're doing some DOS commands, they will ask you, please enter this number or enter -1 to exit out the loop, exit out the programs, something like that. Or you press exit, click typing EXIT to exit. Something like that. Those special words, those keywords they ask you to input to stop a value or stop a loop, those we call Sentinel values. And those are just depends. Just make sure today, if you are doing a grade book from 0 to 100, that's a normal range of the grade, right? Don't set any of the Sentinel value inside that range. Otherwise, it will stop randomly. So if today you do a grade book from 0 to 100, you probably say, or enter -1 or -99 to finish the loop, because that one is not in the data range you are working with. Okay, just make sure you set up the Sentinel value correctly. And the last one we talk about is nested loop. Just like if else statement, if else, else if, you know, those are nested statements. Same thing as loop. You can have a nested loop, like a loop inside a loop. You can have a while loop inside a while loop. You can have a do while inside a do while. Or you can do for loop inside a for loop. Example, if you are in the future, you're dealing something like array, 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional array. You need to have a multi-for loop nested together to control X, Y, and Z, something like that. All right, so this is the loop. The 3 main loop we use is while loop, do while loop, and the for loop. You can pick any one of them to use, whatever it makes sense to you. Okay, you have any question, let me know. Contact me through a Blackboard or email. Thank you.